Not because he disliked it. Because it made him feel something he had spent years trying to forget. For 6 years, Caelan Mercer had built one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country. At 39, he had magazine covers, luxury apartments overlooking the city skyline, a personal driver, and enough money to buy almost anything he wanted, everything except the one thing he missed most, connection. Every morning, his penthouse windows reflected the same lonely image, a successful man drinking coffee alone while the city below rushed toward lives that seemed fuller than his own. His days were packed with investors, acquisitions, and endless presentations, but his nights stretched endlessly in silence. The silence had become so familiar that he stopped noticing it, until one ordinary Tuesday morning, his executive assistant informed him that the company's customer experience department had organized a call to discuss complaints about their newest service platform. Caelan almost delegated it to someone else. He rarely attended internal meetings anymore, but for reasons he couldn't explain, he stayed. Then he heard her speak. Her voice wasn't polished or rehearsed. It carried warmth, patience, and a gentle confidence that immediately cut through the cold corporate language filling the virtual meeting room. She spoke to frustrated clients as if they truly mattered. She listened, she paused before answering difficult questions, and somehow, through nothing but sound, she made people feel seen. For the first time in years, Caelan stopped checking his emails during a meeting that he listened to every word. If you believe kindness and second chances still matter in this world, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Hub for more heartwarming stories that remind us we're never truly alone. Her name, he learned later, was Mirelle Arden. She worked remotely from a small coastal town nearly 300 miles away. She wasn't an executive, a manager, or an industry expert. She was simply one of hundreds of employees who answered customer calls every day. Yet over the following weeks, Caelan found himself scheduling reasons to join meetings she attended. At first, he told himself it was professional curiosity, then he stopped pretending. There was something extraordinary about her. Whenever tensions rose during difficult conversations, Mirelle remained calm. When clients became angry, she responded with empathy instead of defensiveness. She remembered details about people, the name of a customer's sick father, the small business owner struggling to keep employees paid, the elderly woman who called because she was afraid of technology. To everyone else, these were support tickets. To Mirelle, they were human beings, and somewhere between quarterly reports and late-night strategy sessions, Caelan realized he was waiting to hear her voice. It became the best part of his day. Meanwhile, Mirelle knew very little about him. Officially, he rarely interacted with staff outside the executive team. But one afternoon, after a company-wide brainstorming session, he stayed behind on the call. Their conversation lasted 7 minutes. 7 minutes that lingered in his mind for days. She talked about the ocean near her hometown and how she walked along the shore every morning before work. She laughed easily, and her laughter sounded like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Caelan couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed that naturally. As weeks turned into months, their conversations became more frequent. They discussed books, childhood memories, favorite songs, and the strange comfort of rainy afternoons. Mirelle never asked about his wealth. She didn't care about headlines or business awards. In fact, she seemed completely uninterested in status. Whenever he mentioned work stress, she reminded him to eat proper meals and take breaks. Whenever he sounded exhausted, she somehow noticed that it amazed him. Hundreds of people surrounded him every day, yet nobody ever asked if he was sleeping well. One evening, after a difficult board meeting, Caelan sat alone in his dark office overlooking the city. The company was preparing for its largest expansion, and investors demanded more growth, more profits, more sacrifices. His phone buzzed. A voice message from Mirelle. She had sent it after noticing he seemed distracted earlier that day. Her message lasted less than a minute. She simply reminded him that success meant very little if it cost him his peace. Then she told him to step outside and watch the sunset, because no deadline was more important than remembering he was human. Caelan listened to the message 3 times, then he walked outside. For the first time in years, he watched the sun disappear behind the buildings, and he cried, not because he was unhappy, because he realized how lonely he had become. Growing up, Caelan had watched his parents sacrifice everything to survive. He promised himself that one day he would never worry about money again. He kept that promise, But somewhere along the way, he traded relationships for achievements, birthdays became business trips, friendships became networking opportunities, love became something he convinced himself he didn't need, until a woman he had never met reminded him that the heart doesn't stop needing connection simply because life gets busy. Still, fear held him back. What would happen if she saw the real him, not the successful CEO everyone admired, the exhausted man who ate dinner alone most nights, the man who couldn't remember the last time someone hugged him without wanting something in return. So he avoided video calls, and surprisingly, so did Mirelle. She joked that she preferred voices because they revealed who people truly were. For a while, that was enough, until it wasn't. One afternoon, the company announced its annual employee appreciation event. For the first time in years, every department would gather in person, including remote staff, including Mirelle. Caelan read her name on the attendance list 3 times. Suddenly, the possibility of meeting her felt terrifying. What if the connection they shared only existed because of distance? What if she discovered who he was and everything changed? For days, he considered skipping the event altogether, but something deeper pushed him forward. Hope. The morning of the event arrived bright and warm. Sunlight reflected across the glass towers downtown while employees filled the hotel ballroom with excitement and nervous energy. Caelan stood backstage adjusting his tie, feeling more anxious than he had before any investor presentation. Across town, Mirelle arrived, carrying the same nervous anticipation. She knew the CEO would attend. She simply didn't know that the thoughtful man she spoke with almost every day was him. Throughout their conversations, he had introduced himself only as Cal. She assumed he worked somewhere in upper management, nothing more. When the event began, Caelan stepped onto the stage to deliver his opening speech. The room erupted into applause. Mirelle froze, her heart pounded. The familiar voice filling the ballroom belonged to the man standing under the bright lights. For several seconds, she couldn't breathe. Cal, the person who listened to her stories, the man who remembered her favorite author. The voice that checked whether she had eaten lunch during busy days. That he was the CEO. After the presentation ended, employees gathered for lunch and networking. Caelan searched the room for her, then he saw her, standing near the windows with sunlight dancing across her dark hair. She looked exactly how he imagined and nothing like he expected. Beautiful, not because of perfect features, but because kindness seemed to radiate naturally from her. When their eyes finally met, both smiled nervously. Neither moved. Then Mirelle walked toward him, not toward the CEO everyone admired, toward the man whose voice had become part of her daily life, toward Cal, toward the lonely person behind the title. She admitted she felt shocked. That he admitted he had been afraid. She laughed softly and told him she would have spoken to him exactly the same way if she had known from the beginning, because titles never interested her, people did. For the rest of the afternoon, they talked for hours. No executives, no schedules, no expectations, just 2 people. Discovering that sometimes the strongest connections begin long before eyes ever meet. Over the following months, Caelan made changes that once seemed impossible. He stopped working every weekend. He reconnected with old friends. He visited Mirelle's coastal town whenever he could. Together, they walked along the shoreline at sunrise while waves rolled gently onto the sand. The silence between them never felt empty. It felt peaceful. For the first time in years, Caelan no longer rushed through life chasing bigger numbers. He learned that success wasn't measured by stock prices or headlines. It was measured by moments, shared laughter, long conversations, someone waiting for you at the end of a difficult day. And Mirelle discovered something too. Even people who seem to have everything can carry invisible loneliness. Sometimes the kindest thing we can offer another person is our attention, our patience, our voice, because a few sincere words can change a life. Before we reach the ending, tell us in the comments, have you ever formed a meaningful connection with someone before meeting them in person? Years later, Caelan would still say the most valuable thing he ever found wasn't hidden in a contract or business deal. It arrived through a pair of headphones on an ordinary Tuesday morning. A voice that reminded him he was more than his accomplishments. A voice that helped him find his way back to himself. And if this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to Kindness Hub so we can continue spreading stories that celebrate compassion, hope, and the extraordinary power of human connection. Because sometimes, the people who save us don't appear with grand gestures. Sometimes, they simply speak, and for the right person, their voice feels like coming home.